Welcome everyone to the Helm Dev Call for May 30th, 2019. We're going to go ahead and get started with everything today. For those who are new or watching this for the first time, generally we start with some announcements, then continue into our stand-up, talk about any discussion items that have been brought up by the community, and then finalize our assignments for the next week. So as far as I can see in our notes, there are no announcements, minus the fact that I think we all survived KubeCon. Are there any other announcements we missed?
Actually, I do have one announcement. So the Helm Summit CFPs are due by the end of this Friday. So if you have any CFPs, I'm always happy to review those. Otherwise, yeah, I will post a link in the chat for the actual CFP submission site, and that's all.
Yes, please bring your CFPs, and especially if you have any good use cases, like use cases of Helm or other things like that that the community can hear about, those are always nice to have. So I think that's it. Otherwise, so we'll go ahead and continue on to stand-up. The way stand-up works is we start off with all the core maintainers, and then if there's anyone from the community who wants to report on some of the work that they've done, then we'll have that at the end of the stand-up section as well. So I'll start off with me. I obviously didn't do much because I was in Barcelona for KubeCon. This week I won't be doing much from the code side, but I am working on my CFP today because, you know, better late than never. And then I will be probably taking on some of the Helm 3 tasks. So that is my stand-up. And before I pass it on, is anyone taking notes?
I'm taking notes.
Okay. Then I will pass it on to, I see Butcher out in a very sunny, nice location, which I think is rare for Colorado right now.
In between the snowstorms, I had to get outside and sit on the porch. Yeah, I haven't, likewise, last week was not the pinnacle of productivity on the Helm side for me. So all this week, it's just reviewing PRs and things like that, whatever Adam wants me to do. Adam's out sick today, but is planning on continuing on his Helm 3 work. Next week I will be out of town, so I think I'll be back by Thursday morning, so I'll probably be here for this call, but I'll be out of town for the first half of the week, so I'm unlikely to get very much done early next week as well. That was a rather lackluster stand-up, so I'll pass it over to Josh.
Hey, I was the issue Sherpa, so I Sherpa'd and have been looking into a few issues with the registry work, and I want to talk about some things in discussion regarding that. Nikhil.
So for me, not much going on as well. Wasn't able to make it to KubeCon, so was watching videos as well as responding to some of the comments that came up in issues the previous week. Started working on CFP submission as well, so we'll continue that. Hopefully get that in by tomorrow. And wanted to start taking a look at the Helm 3 pieces as well. I will pass it on to Scott.
Cool. Hey, I don't have a lot to report except I finally got around to fixing the Helm Hub automation thing. Thanks to Matt for reviewing it and finding a little nit that was pretty easy to fix. So that is all. I do have, you know, like some issues, some Helm issues that I'm interested in, but I don't think those really warrant this here. Maybe I'll ping someone later to see if I can get an eyeball on something. I also want to just say, like, for an aftertalk, that if we have time, I would love to understand a little bit more of some of what we'll be able to do with Lua for charts specifically. I'm looking over it, and I'm just not really totally getting some of that. So, you know I could always try to reach out to Adam, but I don't want to really bug him too much. I'm wondering if there's like a place to do that prior to Helm Summit. So that's my after talk question. That's it for me.
Yeah, Scott, you can ping me, and I'm happy to chat about anything Lua related with Helm.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'll send you if you don't know my Slack, I'll send you my Slack handle.
Thanks.
I'll go. This past week hasn't been the most productive. Been moving, so a lot of packing happening, and then I'm going to be moving this weekend. So I'm hoping to get back into full Lua development for Alpha 2 next week. But in between, I've basically been hacking on the Go reflect layer between Lua to kind of abstract Lua using the magic of reflection. So that's my stand-up. Matt Fisher, did you go?
I have not gone yet. So for me, this past week, I've been at KubeCon and just kind of like answering questions and going through the 2 docs with like Adam, the deep dive, and the introduction with Michelle. So those were kind of like the high priority items that I was working on last week. This week, I just like catching up from Barcelona time. Today is my second day back, so yesterday was all expense reports. So today I'm getting back into the swing of things and figuring out where I can help and whatnot. So yeah, nothing much to report on my end. I think Martin, you haven't gone yet either.
No, I have not. Strange enough, I was at KubeCon as well. Good to catch up with some of you folks. So I've just kind of made my way back this week and just going through triaging a few bugs, looking at a few PR reviews, and also just answering some questions on Slack. So I just was thinking about what I'm doing next week, but I've just realized, is next week the review of CFPs?
That's actually a good question. So myself and Adam, Reinhard, and Priyanka are part of the co-chair committee. And so next week on Wednesday, we're going to talk to, or like we're trying to figure out together, like sending out information to the program committee on doing CFP reviews and the deadlines and all of that. It's just been like, it's been a whirlwind to get everything all together. So we're hoping to get over next Wednesday to coordinate and send out that information. So yeah, we should have more in the coming weeks.
Okay, that's good, because I didn't know when it was kicking off. So, but there's no rush whenever it kicks off. So, okay, so that means I won't. So next week I'll probably, or this week coming, I'm going to look at. I have a couple of PR reviews I want to see out. I must also raise a PR for updates to the release checklist. So some things we found when we were doing the 2.14 release. So that'll be good to drive that in, and I'll get back again at the migration. So yeah. So Josh has gone. Nikhil, have you gone yet?
Yeah, I think Farina is left.
All right, I'll go. So pretty much all I did was some charts and Helm Hub stuff. So it was actually pretty small. I was off on other things. Helm Hub will be a lot easier now that everything's automated. Thanks. That's it.
Okay, I think that's all the core maintainers then. Is there anyone from the community who wanted to give a stand-up / report on anything they're working on? Okay. Awesome. Then we will continue on to the discussion. We have 4 discussion items on the board. The first one on the list is from Martin. It's about features added to the Helm 3 project board, so community can help deliver Helm 3 release. Want to speak to that, Martin?
Yeah, just very quickly. So it's something that Matt Farina did post KubeCon Seattle, I think it was. He just created, I suppose, worked with other people, with other cores to create a series of features so that they're out on the project board for V3, so people can just take it off the queue and work on it. So yeah.
Yeah, we've been, so Adam and I have been trying to figure out any kind of neat features or good things that would be things that we could review in the time and things that look like they would be backwards incompatible changes, but good things to move forward. As in things that if we need to tackle them, now is the time to do so. Like there's nice features like Helm lint and other things like that, but actually Helm lint would be a backwards incompatible change. So that was one thing, but basically we're having a tough time figuring out those kind of things. So if you do have ideas and if you do find or features or whatnot, that would be great to add into the Helm 3.0 alpha list. And that would be great to figure out what kind of things do we need to tackle in a backwards incompatible fashion before we land Helm 3.0. So yeah.
Okay, or is it, you know, from talking, trying to get, I suppose one of the good aims is, you know, now that the momentum of Helm 3 is there and the response at the KubeCon, is it probably more pertinent to look at, you know, dealing with any issues that come in and making it more robust and fixing that? That's probably a higher priority than the new functionality.
Yeah, I mean, so the two things that we're trying to tackle, like the priority is to get to get Helm 3.0 out the door. I mean, so we can go and tackle features that we want to add in, but if we want to make sure that the project is going as forward as, not as quickly as possible, but in the best way possible so that we can implement features in like 3.0, 3.1, 3.2, we want to get the core things that we really want to get done now, and then we can fix the other things as we go along. So basically, Adam and I necessarily have been looking at things that are like, so like the XDG configuration directory changes was something that will be a backwards incompatible change, but it might be a good change because it will remove Helm and init in the future. So that's something that we're looking at doing for 3.0, because that would be something that would break compatibility, but it would be a good feature to bring forward. Whereas, say like something that is a nice feature that might be like a Helm repo create, or someone was asking, I remember something about adding a dependency to the requirements file, as in like a Helm dependency add command, where you could add a chart to your dependency and that could be tacked on. That seems more like an evaluation of a feature that would be something that could be tacked on to the existing Helm ecosystem without actually having any backwards incompatible changes. So those are things that are like, those would be nice to have, but they're not necessarily priority to get 3.0 out the door. They're more like we could tackle those in a 3.1 or a 3.2. So that's kind of how we've been addressing prioritization of those issues. So that helps a little bit with context on trying to figure out what's good for project planning or not.
Okay, all right. So maybe it's just a case of putting issues up there,
yeah, exactly.
so that people can help out, basically.
Yeah, exactly. If there's something that we see that is a good feature to have, like say the plugin system or something like that, that's a backwards incompatible change that we need to address before 3.0, then let's have that issue and open it, and then we can have that discussion here.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the next discussion item. It is about signing a container repos. Farina, that was yours, I think.
Yeah, so one of the things is I'm looking at sticking charts in container repositories. How do we go about doing that? Why do we do it? What's going on with everything going on? And one of the things I started looking at was signing. Right now, our provenance file has a hash of the package, and then it's signed to that package. We use GPG keys right now. That's our current provenance and the ability to do that. But container repositories won't necessarily have the same hash of the same thing in every repository. A bunch of them that are using Docker distribution are likely to, but not necessarily. So if I push the same container to Quay and Docker Hub and like 4 different places in the same version, I may end up with different hashes for that in each one. So I can't even just reference it. right? But that also means that signing is therefore different as well, because currently you can sign just the package, and you can stick it all over the place, and that same package has the same hash, and it is still good. But when we move to container repositories, that's not going to be the case. And so that changes up our possible signing. I see, Fisher, you've got it, especially if we switch to something like Notary, and we look at something like that for it, because that just changes not just signing, but signing is now coupled to a location. And I wanted to have a conversation on it, just get some thoughts. Fisher, you had your hand up.
Yeah. So this was actually an interesting conversation that I had, or that I started to discover last week, I think, with some of the OCI folks. So the context on why the SHA sums or why the digest changes between each container registry that you push to. So there's two different contexts, or there's two different things when you're dealing with container registries. There's the index, which is an index is essentially like a bill of materials that the registry contains to pull down all of the layers for a container image. And so that index is one thing. The other thing is actually the container layers and the actual metadata that makes up the Docker container, and those get fetched out. As far as I understood, and I could be misunderstanding it again, but I think the index is the part that changes over time, but the content itself, like the Docker image, when you do a push and whatnot, that content is unchanged. As you push the layers, like obviously you don't want to push it up to a new container registry and suddenly that content is invalid, or that content changes, or it gets rewritten. The index that each registry hosts on their stuff, that changes over time. So I think Radu Mate, who's working on the CNAB project, he's been looking at this as well, for Duffel and for signing CNAB bundles and for all that kind of stuff. And so they're going through the same problems and trying to solve this same problem, which is how do we sign the bundle and make sure that one signature that we create allows us to verify that each and every single different registry, that content is unchanged. And I think it's basically trying to figure out the disparity between the contain or the index versus the actual content. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
This makes me wonder. Okay, that makes sense. And I get where the index would be different for each one, but the content that it references might be the same. What I start to wonder then is, how does this work with something like Tough and Notary? Because that's one of the things that's used for signing over there. And if not, how do we do things? And if you look into the Helm issues, we've had stuff, we do GPG signing, but now we've got people saying, hey, can we use a PKI and not, PGP keys, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got these alternatives, and we had talked, I don't know if it's documented anywhere, about using Notary and using Tough to do this. But I guess I'll have to look into some of the engagement of the layers versus the index and how that signing works. I'm guessing from what's been said, with things changing and you signing to a location, you're actually signing an index rather than the contents within with Notary, which means we may want to look into something else. But okay, I'll go ferret that out.
Butcher also has his hand raised, so perhaps he has some context on this too.
There is one thing that makes signing Helm charts more resilient than CNAB and makes CNAB a hard case and Helm an easier case. And that's that you can sign the chart locally, upload the chart and the signature into a repository, like a Docker registry. So you could upload the signature as part of, even as a data field in one of the manifests. And you still get the same level of security guarantee if you maintain the local keychain, because the verification is that the signature, the key that signed the signature is still valid, and the content of the signed body, the hash code in there, still matches the hash code on the Helm chart. So you could, in theory, keep the same signing process that we have now and do the same thing. We could also look at SALT and some of the other sort of replacements for the PGP way of doing things, which allow for hierarchical key distribution as well as flat key distribution. and maybe accommodate some of the other interests of the users. But we do have the advantage that a Helm chart isn't dependent on the image reference name, which is the piece that is prone to break when you move things, if that made sense. You still have problems if you move
That makes sense.
No, you actually don't. You actually don't even have problems if you move the chart from one repo to another, because the chart itself does not contain the name of the repository into which it's pushed. So
Yeah. So
it's
the
a
hash
little
should change.
slightly easier to deal with.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think I've got enough to move. Thanks. That's all I wanted. Now that I've eaten up all of this wonderful time.
Okay, let's take a brief pause because I have to leave right at the top of the hour. So let's do assignments and we'll come back to the discussions. Who would like to be moderator next week?
I can moderate next week.
And then who'd like to do notes?
I don't know about like to do, but I'll volunteer.
Perfect. Thanks for that. And anyone like to be issue Sherpa this week?
I can be your shipper this week. I could do double duty.
Okay, now back to the discussion items. If I drop off, just continue onward. The last two we have, first up is from Josh. It's the registry things undiscussed, which I'm sure you'll clarify. And then something about 214, meaning Helm 214 with some issues with Azure.
So I basically have a laundry list of things that we have not discussed about registries. Actually, nothing to do with the topic Farina talked about, actually. But there's several things, such as how do we enforce versioning? What are all the different layers that we're pushing up as a single chart package? What's going to happen with the old repo system? How do they play together? So I think at this point, there's 3 minutes. I would like to maybe schedule, I don't want to rehash the registry working group at any means, but I'd like to schedule like a 30-minute, 1 hour discussion just to hash this stuff out. I also sent a email to the cartographers mailing list about 2 weeks ago and didn't hear back. So I think we just need to sit down for 30 minutes to an hour and just hash some things out.
Yeah, I don't recall. I can't remember if I saw that cartographer email. I'll have to take a look at my inbox again.
There's like a lot of mailing lists too, so
okay. Yeah. But yeah, I'd be happy with sitting down for a half hour and talking through those different things. Because like we've been playing around with some of the stuff, like I've been playing around with some of the chart repository things and talking about like the integration with Helm install, Helm dependency and all that. I'm starting to get a little bit of a better idea on some of the problems and use cases that people are coming up to. So yeah, it might be a good idea to start bouncing those ideas and then come back to the dev call or to come back to the proposals and say like, this is
that'd be great. And it's way too much to talk about in this meeting because there's other stuff going on and stand-ups. So I'll take care of scheduling that. Also, I put it in I meant to say this at the beginning of the call. I put up a website last week that mirrors all of the charts in Helm Hub for use with the new registry commands. So I put a link in here too. It's bundle.bar. And the idea with this is it could host, all sorts of different things that could be pulled and pushed like a registry. So check that out if you want to play with this stuff. There's like 600 or 700 charts uploaded. And then my other issue, it's 12 now. My other issue was there's this ongoing thing while I was Sherpaing about Azure support with the new Helm release, the 2.14 release, where basically it signs you out if your kubectl version is below 114 and you do AZ login and then use Helm 214, you get logged out. So I'm wondering if anyone, especially for Microsoft, has any background on that.
No, we don't have any background on that. The Azure CLI or the team that's working on like the Azure authentication is completely separate from us. Like we're working on open source stuff, so I don't have any context around that. I have asked at SIG Azure if anyone knows anything, but I haven't received any kind of response.
There's a comment at the bottom of this, and it says, it appears at first glance that the kubeconfig format has changed between client Go 113 and 114, including a backwards incompatible change, and that may be causing issues because the latest
Right.
114 is probably using client Go 1.14.
Right, and I think the Azure Auth service, and I put a comment on this, but I think Azure Auth service is like, please upgrade your token, or this is incompatible. But it's strange because it lets you get one request in, but then on a second one it doesn't. But yeah, it's definitely when the person who submitted this, when they upgraded kubectl, it started working.
Yeah,
Okay.
this seems to be an ecosystem-wide problem.
Has anybody chased down an issue in the Kubernetes issue queues about it?
No, I haven't done any investigation on the Kubernetes issue queue. However, that would be a great suggestion to figure that out, to start nailing this down. Because if it's going to be anywhere, it's going to be in kubectl.
Yeah, and if we let them know or we've got a response, we can say, hey, this is what Kubernetes did. That's what's causing it. We can at least deflect over to there. Say, hey, it's on them, and here's the issue.
That's all I got.
Alrighty. So since Taylor's gone, thanks everyone for coming along. See you all next week.
See ya.
Thanks, folks.